No DQ Galaxy. We are live with a recap of AEW All In 2024, coming from Wembley Stadium in London, England. A smaller crowd than last year, not a record breaker, but still a respectable number for AEW. Over 50,000 fans in attendance, and it looked good on television. You definitely could see some empty seats, but I will say this, as the show went on and it got darker in the building, it looked a little bit better. Production was on point for this show. The pyro, it felt like a major league show. It felt like AEW's WrestleMania. They had the big stage, which made it look big league, made it look big time. A lot of matches to discuss. We had the 2-hour buy-in show. I'll quickly recap the matches. The first match, we had a 16-man tag team match. In other words, we have to get everybody on the show. Make sure everybody has a spot on the All In card. It was Jay Lethal, Private Party, Dark Order, Tommy Billington, Kip Sabian, Rocky Romero, Kyle Fletcher, Leo Rush, Action Andretti, Top Flight. So many people in this match. Good guys won. It was fine for what it was. Little opening match here to kick off the festivities. Apparently, it was around 54,000 fans in attendance. Thank you for that, Michael Wayne. Shout out to Maddie, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate it. Maddie says, this was up there with WrestleMania as show of the year. I 100% agree with you, Maddie. Thank you for the super chat. Chat room, feel free to leave your comments. Feel free to super chat. I'll try to answer your super chat when it's appropriate to whatever the match is, but feel free to super chat about any match. I will make sure I get to all of them before the end of the stream. And I also plan on getting good old JM Jeff Meacham on to talk about the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. During the pre-show, we had a sit-down Renee Paquette with Brie Bella, Brie Garcia, whatever you want to call her, the wife of Bryan Danielson. She hyped up the match. She was in attendance. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We also had a couple of announcements regarding future AEW shows. They are heading to Australia in 2025, February 15th in Brisbane, Australia. That venue holds about 50,000 fans. We'll see how they draw in Australia. They also confirmed that since All In will be in Texas next year, London will be getting the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, but it was not confirmed where this event will take place. And then at the very end of the show, we did get the confirmation 2026 AEW will be back at Wembley Stadium for All In. Anything can change between now and then, who knows, but they're going to go for a third event at Wembley Stadium. We'll see if they can draw the big crowd. Tony Khan and Martha Hart also hyped up the show. We got a little appearance from them. Our other buy-in matches, we had Kris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway versus Willow, Nightingale, and Tomohiro Ishii. Ishii pinned Hathaway, which is not a shock at all. This was definitely the way to go here. And if you guys want more detailed results, head over to NoDQ.com. And thank you to everybody that checked out NoDQ for live results coverage. I very much appreciate it. Then the final match was Dustin Rhodes teaming up with Sammy Guevara, Shibata, and the Von Erichs going up against the Undisputed Kingdom and Gates of Agony. And you had the Undisputed Kingdom out there. Another match to get people on the card. It was fine for what it was. Dustin picked up the win with a little bit of help from Sammy Guevara. And after the match, we had all the good guys giving the bad guys the Iron Claw. And this was including Kevin Von Erich getting in the mix for the end of this. So little nice fun moment here for the Von Erich fans. Shout out to Gareth Smith, who sent in a £5 super chat. I think it's pound. Says, mate, I don't watch AEW regularly. All In last year was my last show. This year's was great. Well, there you go. We'll see if this show can bring back some people that may have given up on AEW. I think there's a decent chance, but let's get into the meat of this pay-per-view card. Our opening match. Well, actually, there was more. We're not done. There was more on the kickoff. There was a lot. We had Saraya come into the ring for a promo. She was upset that she was not on the card for All In. And we got the big return of Jamie Hayter, who has not been around in, I think, over a year. It's been a while since we've last seen her. She made her grand return, and she came out there. She beat up Saraya's entourage, including Saraya's mother, who was out there. Saraya tried to have her mother come in for a cheap shot, and that backfired. I would agree with Ian. The only negative to this was that they had Hayter's big return on the kickoff. They should have found a way to have squeezed this on the main show. Just my opinion. We kicked off All In with a ladder match. The Patriarchy with Christian Cage, Killswitch, Nick Wayne against the Bang Bang Gang, the House of Black, and the Blackpool Combat Club, along with PAC. They were the wild card team. 4-way ladder match. Entertaining match to kick off the show. Not a classic ladder match by any means, but it did its job to get the fans hyped up and set things up, set the tone for the evening. It was a good opener. Christian Cage ran away right when the match started and then came back out there when everybody was down. And I did notice this, Ian. Some of the ladders they had out there were very tiny. I wonder why. We had some props in the match. We had chairs and tables. You could say this was like a TLC match with all the various plunder. And we did have some tables breaking during the match. Nick Wayne put Malakai Black through a table. And then Christian knocked Juice off a ladder. He gave PAC a kill switch on a chair. And at one point, Mama Wayne threw her hairspray in the ring. Christian used the hairspray, and then Mama Wayne tried to use it on Juice, but he blocked it with a chair and sprayed her with it. There was another point in the match where Mama Wayne tried to climb the ladder herself to win the match. And then Christian speared Buddy off a ladder through a table below. Buddy Matthews, he got wiped out. And then Killswitch tried to help Christian win, helped him climb up the ladder, but then PAC went after Christian. PAC knocked Christian off the ladder. Christian fell onto Killswitch, and PAC was able to grab the ladder and pick up the victory. I think this is the only match I got wrong of the entire evening. Actually, that's not true. More on that in a little bit. PAC and the Blackpool Combat Club win the trios titles, even though PAC is due for an international title match. More on that title in just a little bit. I guess it was meant to be a nice feel-good moment for PAC. Picks up the win, gets his Wembley moment as he was hoping for. Good match here to kick off the show. Next up, we had Timeless Toni Storm versus Mariah May for the AEW Women's Championship. I was a little surprised it was the second match of the show, considering that it had one of the best buildups of anything on the entire show. This was really good. This was exactly what it needed to be, in my opinion. This was to take Mariah May to the next level, but also keep Toni Storm strong as a babyface. You had Mariah May's mother out there, and she was not happy with Mariah's actions. And at one point, Mariah actually slapped her own mother, and Toni Storm had to go over and hug Mariah's mother. And it was a back and forth competitive match. Luther was out there trying to prevent Mariah May from cheating to win. Mariah tried to use the AEW Women's Championship. She got stopped by Luther. And then Mariah wanted to use the shoe. Now, Toni got the shoe, and Mariah May had gotten busted open during this match, which was a nice touch because that's what Mariah did to Toni to really kick off this match being set up for Wembley. Mariah was busted open. She was crying. Toni was going to use the shoe, but her conscience got the best of her. She could not pull the trigger on her former friend. She could not hit her with the shoe, and that was her downfall. She had a heart, and it cost her. Mariah May then, insult to injury, pinned Toni with the Storm Zero finisher. Not often we see the babyface getting pinned with her own move, but here it was, and it was perfect because, as Maddie points out in the chat, it sets up a rematch. Mariah May gets the title. Toni is now more over as a babyface, and you can have Toni coming for her revenge now. This can lead to a no-holds-barred match or some kind of stipulation match at a future pay-per-view. I thought it was about as well done as you could ask for, and if it's the first match in a series, you didn't need to do every move in the book. So maybe it was fine being the second match on the show because it's building towards the future. Very well done here. Mariah May taken to the next level with this win. I think they nailed this one. Great match. Next up, we had Chris Jericho versus Hook for the FTW title. Now, this was what it was. It didn't really need to be anything more. I mean, you could have kept this off the show, but of course, Chris Jericho's got to be on, right? He's got to have that TV time. Chris Jericho came to the ring with Fozzy. They performed his song that he's been using as the learning tree. It's one of Fozzy's songs. Hook had the heartbeat and the flatline sound effects, which was Taz's old entrance music. So that was a nice little touch for Hook to pay tribute to his father. Now, you had outside interference. This was more or less a comedy match. You had a cricket bat and cricket balls being used as props. You had a barbed wire board placed on a table, and Big Bill stood up on the apron. Hook knocked him off. Big Bill crashed through the table. Unfortunately, it was a poor camera shot. They almost missed it. But other than that, it was entertaining for what it was. And then Bryan Keith tried to interfere, but Taz had enough of this BS. He put the Taz mission on Bryan Keith, and Jericho tapped out to Red Rum. Hook gets the win here. It served its purpose. Hook wins the FTW title, which doesn't really mean anything, but thankfully, this should be the end of the feud with these guys, and maybe they can actually find something else to do with Hook instead of defending the FTW title. I really think they should just retire it at this point. Hook won it back. It's in the family. Now maybe they should retire it and move on to something else. Shout out to Marshall Leonard. How's it going, Marshall? Hope you're doing well. Says, do you think Shane McMahon will debut in AEW at some point? Sorry for the off topic. Yours truly, Marshall. I would be shocked if we do not see Shane McMahon at some point. He was not on this show, but he wasn't needed. They had enough going on, and in a way, it might have even gotten lost in the shuffle, or he would have overshadowed something else. Save it for another show. I do think it will happen. If I had to bet money on it, I would say that Shane does appear in AEW at some point. Next up, we had the Young Bucks going up against FTR and the Acclaimed. Now, this might get some hate, but the Young Bucks popped me on this show. And for any of you that know me personally, you know why. That entrance. Why did I pop? Because I am a huge Beatles fanatic. So for them to come out there in London with the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band attire, they had the outfits, they had the album cover as their Titantron. I popped for this big time. I loved this, and I cannot give this match or this show a bad grade just for this alone. They know me. Hell, if they make a reference to the Beatles on every show, like I'd put over every AEW show. Like, that's how they win me over. So I loved the entrance for the Young Bucks with the Beatles. Great stuff here. FTR, they were wearing the Bret Hart pink and black attire. Them and CM Punk always showing their love for CM Punk CM Punk and FTR showing their love for Bret Hart. But we'll talk more about CM Punk here in just a few moments. Acclaimed came out there, did their rap. It was a very good match, entertaining match, competitive with all three teams. You had a lot of moments where it was all six in the ring, hitting their big moves. There was one point where Max Caster was helping out Matthew Jackson with the BTE trigger, and then Caster helped out Cash Wheeler with a shatter machine. Then the Young Bucks regained the upper hand with some super kicks. The Bucks tried to cheat using the tag team titles, but Billy Gunn interfered. And then eventually Matthew was able to hit Dax Harwood with the championship. Then the Bucks pinned him with the EVP trigger and retained their titles. No real surprise here that the Bucks are still the champions. And then after the match, we had another surprise. We had the Grizzled Young Veterans, former WWE tag team. Now, they did appear on AEW television a couple of months ago. I think they might have made a few appearances, but they came out there and now they're clearly in the mix. They came out there, Young Bucks retreated, and then to send a message, the Young Bucks attacked FTR and left them laying. The biggest surprise to me of this was that FTR got beat, and then they got attacked after the match was over. I was very surprised by this. I wonder if FTR, if they're in the doghouse now. I expected the Acclaimed to be the ones to take the fall, and then Acclaimed could have gotten beaten up afterwards, but instead it was FTR that got pinned and then taken out by Grizzled Young Veterans after the match. Now the veterans are in the mix, and they'll be getting a title match. But the question is when. As Matthew pointed out, who knows when they will defend their titles next. All right, so now we move on to the 21-man Casino Gauntlet match, which I thought was excellent, except for the finish. Let's talk about it. It was a very entertaining match. Every 90 seconds or so, and it fluctuated. You had a different person coming in, and it was always moving at a fast pace. You had Orange Cassidy and Okada starting us off. Now, we had some surprises. First surprise was Nigel McGuinness, former Ring of Honor and TNA star, later WWE commentator, and then AEW commentator, making his return to the ring. Great opportunity for him to return in England. He got a huge reaction. We also had Zack Sabre Jr. making an appearance. He came in there, and then we had some more people, including Hangman Adam Page, getting in the mix. Then we had what many people expected, the debut of Ricochet, former WWE star Ricochet. He was, in fact, using the name Ricochet. He didn't have to change it. I believe he was using it before WWE, which would give him the opportunity to keep the name. Basically, WWE has to invent the name in order for them to hold claim to it legally. Ricochet got in a lot of offense, looked very flashy for his debut, but then he got taken out with a buckshot lariat, and we never saw him again. Jeff Jarrett, with some help from Karen Jarrett, she grabbed the leg of Paige. Jarrett hit him with the guitar, and then everybody started coming in, doing all of their big moves. Then we had Christian Cage as a surprise entrant, and then not Killswitch, but Luchasaurus coming out there, teasing like he was no longer with Christian, but it was a Vince Russo swerve. Luchasaurus, in fact, helped Christian to win the match. Christian now gets a future world championship opportunity, which, come on now. As much as I like Christian, and he's been great, he's had a renaissance in his career, but we already saw him face Swerve for the world title. We don't need him in the world title mix at this stage of the game. Quite frankly, Ricochet should have won this. Even if he lost the world title match, at least give Ricochet an initial push. Ricochet already loses here and is almost an afterthought in all this. Either that or have Adam Page win, but they had a different direction for Adam Page. More on that in just a little bit. You could have had any number of guys here win this. You could have had Okada win and build him up for a world title match. You could have had Nigel McGuinness win it. I don't know if he plans on doing more matches or not. I just felt like there were so many good choices in this match to win, and they went with Christian. Not a fan with it. And to me, this was maybe the one misstep on this show as far as finishes go. I don't have too much to complain about this All In show, but this was maybe the weakest booking decision of the night. In fact, I would say it was the weakest booking decision of the night. I don't think Christian needs to be in the world title picture by any means. Clearly, he's going to be filler. He's not winning the title or anything, but I think somebody else could have been elevated from this. Christian absolutely did not need to win this. So just my take on that. This was the one disappointment. Felt a bit flat. Shout out to Marshall, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Marshall. I appreciate it. Marshall says, is the FTW title AEW's hardcore title? I guess so, because FTW rules means there's no rules, but this wasn't even the most hardcore match on the show. So I don't even know what it's supposed to be other than they're given something for Taz to be happy about. Hey, a piece of Taz's legacy lives on. Otherwise, I really don't see the point in it. It really is just a prop at this point. It's like Ted DiBiase's $1 million title. Like it's something, it's a vehicle for the wrestler, but it really doesn't mean anything. Next up, we had MJF versus Will Ospreay rematch after MJF won the international title and turned it into the American title. As you would expect, Will Ospreay massively over in England. He felt like the main event. I mean, that guy is so over, and he looked like a major superstar. MJF totally playing up the American gimmick, coming out there dressed up like he's in Rocky IV, and he had like Lex Luger American tights. If you remember, Lex Luger made in the USA with the American tights. He had those tights with the Rocky IV ring gear. And he comes out there. He's got the flag. He's got the red, white, and blue streamers. The streamers were not cooperating with the show. Like, they were hanging around throughout the entire match, which was a little bit of an eyesore. But the match was really good. In a way, I know Michael said in the chat it's not at the level of Dynamite 250, but I almost like this match better because the Iron Man hour match had a lot of filler. This, they more or less got to the point. So in a way, I actually enjoyed this match more than the 1 hour match. I thought it was great. MJF was doing his typical taunts. He yelled out, "Anybody could do a flip, you piece of shit." He yelled that at Ospreay, and then, of course, tried a flip, and it backfired on him. It was back and forth, lots of near falls. The crowd was chanting for Ospreay to do the Tiger Driver, but Ospreay was not at that point. He tried various moves. He tried to hit the hidden blade, but MJF countered. He gave him a destroyer on the apron. Ospreay barely able to make the 10 count, but he did get back in the ring. He hit an Oz cutter on the apron and then went for the hidden blade on the floor, but he missed and he hit the cameraman instead. We don't see that too often, where the cameraman ends up taking a bump during the match. I remember WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels super kicked I'm not sure if it was the cameraman or the timekeeper, but somebody got wiped out. The cameraman was destroyed. Rest in peace to the cameraman. And then MJF was going to try to use the Tiger Driver. MJF, though, was unable to hit it. Ospreay teased going for the Tiger Driver, but then MJF countered with a low blow, and then MJF grabbed his brass knucks. Apparently his Dynamite Diamond ring got stolen, but as he was going to use the brass knucks, Daniel Garcia made his return. MJF was distracted. Ospreay hit the hidden blade, but that wasn't enough. He picked up MJF and he teased it a little bit, but he finally delivered the Tiger Driver. Massive pop, gets the 1-2-3 victory. And after the match, he threw down the American title. Christopher Daniels came in the ring and presented him with the International Championship. It was great storytelling, and I think this should be the end of MJF and Ospreay. Ospreay gets the title, and now MJF can move on to Daniel Garcia. I thought this was all really well done. Predictable. Figured Ospreay would win here, but I thought that the execution was well done. Everything worked nicely, and it was a great match. I even liked it more than the 250 match. So that's just me personally. I think they delivered, and it was very entertaining. All right, next up we had Mercedes Moné versus Britt Baker for the TBS Championship. I thought this match was good, but it was probably the weakest match on the main card. They had a tough act to follow. I mean, they were a tough act to follow. Coming after MJF and Ospreay, they were fighting an uphill battle, but the crowd was into it. Shout out to Maddie, who sent in a $2 super chat, says, I think AEW will have more unified mid-card title matches. I do think they should. I think they do need to merge a couple of the titles, at least the Continental and International. They're basically the same thing. Do we really need all these mid-card titles? And then you have the TNT title on top of it. Definitely get rid of FTW, that's for sure. But anyways, Mercedes had a big entrance, gold carriage. She was carried out on the stage. She had this dog with her. Camille was out there interfering. It was back and forth. And Mercedes was targeting Britt Baker's back. You know, they were playing up how Britt's back was injured. So Mercedes kept working over the back. She body slammed Britt off the second rope. That was a cool little spot there. And Britt was struggling for a while, but eventually she made her comeback, hit the air raid crash. At one point, Mercedes tried to take Britt's glove, and Britt was able to get it back. Then Mercedes went for another avalanche body slam, but Britt countered it. Camille kept interfering, and then Britt pulled an Eddie Guerrero by pretending that Camille hit her with the New Japan Strong Women's title, and the referee ejected Camille. Britt then gave Mercedes the curb stop. Mercedes kicked out, though, and then Britt went for the lockjaw, but Mercedes bit her, and then Mercedes hit the moneymaker and got the 1-2-3 victory. It was a good match. Not bad, but it was definitely not able to follow MJF and Will Ospreay. So in a way, I think it made more sense for Toni Storm and Mariah May to have that second match, because this was the toughest spot of the night to be in. But they did good. Mercedes can definitely deliver in the ring. Wasn't a classic by any means, but it was solid. Then we had our second to last match, which was Jack Perry versus Darby Allin for the TNT title in a coffin match. This was a spectacle. This was a hardcore match. Very violent. Darby Allin had thumbtacks attached to his face when he came out there. Now, I will say this. I had to go use the bathroom. I went for my bathroom break during the video package, but it was so short. And then when I came back, Darby had already made his entrance. And this was just a piss break. This wasn't something else. I went to the bathroom, number one, came back, and Jack Perry was already making his entrance. WWE is the other extreme. Like, they spend too much time with the video packages and stalling. But I think AEW needs to give us a little bit more breather between the matches. There needs to be a happy medium. AEW doesn't have enough time between matches. WWE has too much time between matches. Just my opinion. There needs to be a happy medium. Anyways, very violent match. Coffin match. Darby he set up the coffin. He turned it up so it was facing up in the air, and then he went for a suicide dive but missed and crashed into the coffin. And then Jack Perry pulled out a bag of real glass, which got a huge pop from the crowd, and some of the fans started chanting FCM Punk. Perry ended up being back body dropped onto the glass. Then, like a scene out of Jackass, you had Jack Perry taping up Darby's hands, and then Jack Perry, he used a belt to restrain Darby's legs. He threw Darby off the stage through a table, and then put Darby's body in a body bag, placed him in the coffin. Darby sat up, though, so Perry had to hit him with a knee strike, and then finally Perry was able to close the lid and pick up the victory in the coffin match. Darby doesn't take a pinfall, so he's still looking strong for his future world title match. I thought it was entertaining for what it was. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm all for one hardcore match on a 10-match show. And then afterwards, the Young Bucks came out there. They were going to get revenge for Blood and Guts. They had lighter fluid. They were going to set Darby on fire, who was in the coffin. But then another surprise. We had Seek and Destroy play, and Sting came out there to make the save. He attacked the Elite with his baseball bat, and he gave the Young Bucks a double Scorpion Death Drop. He helped up Darby Allin, and we got a nice little feel-good moment here. Even though he's retired, Sting, He might pop in every once in a while when you're least expecting it. Remember, the only thing that's for sure about Sting is nothing's for sure. So this was entertaining. It was cool to see Sting again. He's retired. Who cares if he shows up in a non-wrestling capacity? He's not wrestling. As long as he's not wrestling, who cares if he shows up every once in a while? I have no problem with it. Main event time. Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson for the World Championship. Bryan got the full epic entrance with Europe's The Final Countdown. Brie Bella Garcia, whatever you want to call her, she was at ringside. Their two kids were there. Bryan hugged them before the match. And then Swerve had this big live rap performance. He looked like a total superstar. Great entrances, and hats off to AEW for the production with these entrances. They were WrestleMania-like entrances here, and they made these guys look like major stars. Thumbs up for Swerve, Bryan, Mercedes, and several others. Lots of great entrances on this show. I think Orange Cassidy had a Mr. Bean entrance at one point. And of course, I loved that Beatles entrance. Anyways, this match was, dare I say, perfect. It was exactly what it needed to be and what it should have been with all this buildup. They heavily teased that this was going to be Bryan's last match. And if this was a musical number, I think they hit every single note right in this match. You had blood. Bryan got busted open pretty early on in the match. Prince Nana had placed a ring bell on the apron, and Swerve gave Bryan a DVD onto the bell. The referee had inadvertently gotten hit, so he didn't see it. And then Bryan was busted open, and then Swerve was kicking Bryan's head in right in front of Bryan's family. That son of a bitch, you sick F, all that stuff. Swerve kept beating up Bryan, but Bryan stayed in the fight. He applied cattle mutilation. Swerve escaped it and dropped Bryan with the vertebraker. And the referee was very concerned. You had medical staff checking in on Bryan. Swerve came off the top with the Swerve stomp. Bryan kicked out of it, and then Swerve, he did the house call kick, a second one, and then he was going for a third one. Bryan had his back turned to Swerve. He was reaching out to his family, and they did a great camera angle. AEW doesn't always have the best camera shots, but they nailed this one with Bryan all bloody, reaching out to his family, and Swerve goes in for the third kick. He hits it, but Bryan somehow manages to kick out. And then Swerve went for the yes kicks, but that was a mistake. Bryan got fired up. Bryan did the yes kicks, and then he hit the running knee, but Swerve basically no-sold it. He brushed it off, and he hit Bryan with another house call kick, hit the big pressure, but Bryan still managed to kick out. And then Swerve was taunting Bryan with the yes chants. He was on the verge perhaps of winning, and that's when Hangman Adam Page showed up. Page provided a distraction. He was looking for revenge on Swerve, and Bryan was able to take advantage. Bryan hit another running knee, but Swerve kicked out. Bryan then applied the label lock. Swerve was trying to fight out of it for all it was worth, but eventually he tapped out, and Bryan Danielson became, I believe, your 9th AEW World Champion. After the match was over, we had the big celebration, the pyro, the fireworks. Brie Bella and the kids were brought in. Blackpool Combat Club came in, and we had this spectacular celebration, very reminiscent of WrestleMania 30, but this might be an unpopular opinion, but I thought in a way this was even better than WrestleMania 30 because the crowd was struggling to stay awake for that WrestleMania 30 main event. And for this match, they were fully engaged for the whole thing. You had the blood in this match. This might be unpopular, but I think this was even better than WrestleMania 30. So we may have some hate mail coming my way, but I thought this was the best moment in AEW history. This was their biggest moment of all time and one of the best matches in wrestling history. I mean, if anything deserves the 7-star rating, it's this. This was perfect for Bryan Danielson, giving him this moment. It'll probably be a short title reign, but you know what? It's cool that he has it. Wembley Stadium, 50,000 plus fans. I think it was 100% the right call. They hit all the right notes. Excellent main event to one of AEW's best shows of all time. I give it a solid A. Again, I only had a few criticisms, one of them being Christian winning. And as I usually say, it was too long. I feel a lot more energized than I usually do because it's 6 o'clock and not 1 o'clock. That's nice, but I still think these shows are too long. This was All In, though, stadium show. So if you're going to do a 4-hour show, this is the one to do it in the afternoon. And, you know, we didn't really need 3 kickoff matches, but nitpicking aside, I thought it was an absolutely excellent pay-per-view. And I hope this is the beginning of a turnaround for AEW, that they'll draw in more fans from this. Maddie sent in $2. He said, emotional, great wrestling, one of the best of all time. I agree with that 100%. And now, without further ado, let's get somebody else's opinion on this. I'm going to bring good old JM, Jeff Meacham, onto the stage for this. And for some reason, he's not popping up. Wait a minute. There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Good old JM, Jeff Meacham in the house. So, Jeff, I will take a break here, let my voice relax.
Right.
Give us your thoughts, and you can give your overall thoughts on the entire show, but let me know what you thought of the main event and how does it stand up to WrestleMania 30, because I know that's going to be a debatable topic. So go ahead, give us your thoughts.
No, it will for sure. I tend to agree with you on the show length. I mean, all these AW shows are long, and you know, you and I aren't getting any younger. Covering this shit for this long is it's a rough. I'm glad I didn't do a watch along. I'll say that. I'm glad I wasn't sitting there, you know, actively having to click the buttons. It was cool just to sit back and watch the show. Christian winning the Gauntlet match, I'm okay with it, only because it's a way to advance the Bryan story on like a fluke victory or something. Like he loses the title because of shenanigans with the, for lack of a better term, the Money in the Bank style cash in. Like Christian just gets one over on him. But other than that, yeah, like it was a damn good outing for AEW. One of their better ones, even with the show length. As far as the main event, I mean, you know, I'm completely 100% biased. I loved the entrance. I brought Dylan in here to watch Bryan's entrance because Dylan never got to see Bryan in PWG. He was too young for that. So getting the final countdown, getting to see him interact with Bree and Buddy and Brody was sweet as hell. It was so wonderful to see that. And yeah, I was deeply emotionally invested in this whole thing. I was so happy. I got a text down the hall when I like cheered out loud that Bryan won. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks. I will agree with you that it was better than the WrestleMania 30 outing. I think that the convoluted nature of the triple threat and the involvement with Hunter and Stephanie and the referee, it just made it too much. The story of this match was so good. Hangman Page being in it's like, I get it. Page wants that swerve. I understand it. I'm glad Bryan didn't win on the psycho knee after they got Page out of there. That would have pissed me off. It really would have cheapened it for me. So I'm glad he didn't win there. I was thinking they were going to do that, and I was like, oh geez. So great top to begin to end story on the match. I thought it was very well done. You mentioned the production values. AEW definitely seemed to make a concerted effort to be better than they've been.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like they were realizing this is going to be that show that either gets them back over that hump and going forward, or they're going to fall flat. Like this was the night they had to hit every single, like you said, a musical number, every single note, and they did it. But the main event was, I didn't hear you using F-bombs. So I'm going to go ahead and take it from you. That was such a fucking beautiful story. It was so great. And I was a bawling idiot, watching Bree and the kids because
I will say this,
because I'm that guy.
I got teary-eyed at the end, and I honestly cannot remember a time that AEW like actually got that kind of an emotional reaction out of me. Like this may have been a first, and because it's real to Bryan, his family being there, having that moment. That's real life right there with his kids enjoying that. Like that's a raw emotional moment. Maybe Sting retiring was another great moment. I will say this: AEW knows how to treat the superstar as well. Sting, Bryan Danielson, giving them their moments.
That is the good part about Tony Khan being a fan.
Yeah,
is stuff like that. I mean,
absolutely.
The booking is what it is, but the farewells have been really good so far. I kind of half wish Flair had been able to have one of those instead of the nonsense we got with and no disrespect to the way the match, but anyway, I you and I have seen Bryan almost from the beginning, so it was a really cool, just a cool moment, and getting to get better acquainted with his wife and his sister-in-law, over the years. It was really cool. Nikki was tweeting along during the whole thing because Brie obviously was there. So it was just a really cool afternoon as a fan and as a friend. It was a really wonderful moment.
Yeah. And AEW, their streak of strong pay-per-views continues. I bought the bundle with All In and All Out, $85. So that's a nice discount. Although Triller TV, I did have one incident. I almost missed Ricochet's debut. It cut out like right before Ricochet's debut, and it reminded me of 2020. We were watching at my wife's place in Saginaw, and and the feed went out for Edge. And we missed Edge's appearance. I was so mad. And I thought I was going to miss Ricochet, but thankfully it came back on. But yeah, I usually do not use Triller/Fight TV. I typically just use YouTube now. Right. YouTube is very reliable, or Bleacher Report in the past. So that was my only issue. But thankfully everything else was good.
Yeah, I had more trouble with connection during the 0 hour. Luckily, it kind of worked itself out when the main show started for me. Triller's kind of hit or miss. I haven't used YouTube for the AEW reviews, and I might, now that they give that option, I might do that. I did not do the bundle. I'm not going to be home 2 weekends from now, so I'm not going to be able to see it, in real time. So it's like somebody on my team will order. I'll just watch it later. That's what I have been doing with AEW because I got a good team that does that. It's a nice benefit.
And Marshall Leonard sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Marshall. Says, is Bryan Danielson heading to WWE? I would say that's highly unlikely in all likelihood.
Yeah, seriously, buy the Rift shirt. Highly unlikely. I can't see that happening now. He's Hall of Fame. Oh yeah, he'll be the WWE Hall of Fame, and Bryan won't be one of those guys that won't accept that. He'll totally take that honor, like absolutely. But yeah, he's getting the moment to go out his own way. He doesn't have to go out and retire on Raw and then have to try to regain his footing at the end there like he did WWE. He's getting to go out the way he wants to go out. Bryan wouldn't want any other way, nor with the family. So
he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, not till the Hall of Fame thing, and knowing Bryan that he'll make that be a few years down the line. He wants to have the wrestling career do its thing and then take that time, be home with the kids, and just be a person. Be Bryan and Bree and Birdie and Buddy and just.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff, for stopping by. I'm hungry. I'm ready for dinner, so I'm going to wrap this up.
I was told by your dinner committee to keep it brief. So.
All right. I know what you're saying there. All right, Jeff. So anything you would like to plug or any final thoughts before we go?
Just keep an eye out on my social media. The further development of my coming back at the beginning of the year is imminent. There's going to be more posts and discussions coming. I just gotta wait things out. But there is more on the horizon. I promise you guys. I'm not going away for good. I can guarantee you that.
All right. Well, as always, a pleasure to have you on.
Always
Jeff,
good to
thank
see you,
you,
brother.
everyone, for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. Actually, it's still daylight, so I guess today I'm used to it being 1 o'clock by this point. So I'm all for these international shows, and they're going to Australia next year.
Yes.
Although that's going to suck for you because that's like 5 a.m. Pacific time.
Oh,
Although
I don't give a shit
you're
about
usually
that.
up. You're usually up.
I mean, yeah, I'm up all hour. I was actually up really early this morning. I will say there was a chat somewhere along here about Mania going there in 2025. Mania's already booked for Vegas, guys.
Yeah.
So, no, Tito, it is. Like, how many times have I retired? Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, wrestling retirements are bullshit.
Absolutely.
They're never going to happen for real. Even Sting was there tonight, like you said.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend. Have a great week, everyone. And I will be back for Raw. And stay tuned. No DQ 300s coming up. Jeff, I think we'll probably see you for that one.
I'll be there. I'll be there for 299 too. So
all right, sounds good. So Jeff will be around. His presence will still be felt. So check out all the content coming up this week. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and we will see you all next time.
And buy the shirt.
Yeah.